Hi, and welcome back to another fine day of The May Show. Today we're going to talk about making your own fun. You know, when I was a young teenager, I came across this phrase that really got my attention and made me think about who I was at the time. That phrase goes, if you're always bored about everything, then it's because you are boring. Now, I didn't completely agree with that quote, but I knew that there was a universal truth in there. And I think it's time that we find what the real message is for both me and you.
It's all about me and you. It's all about me and you.
So making your own fun. What does that mean to me? I know you were wondering. Making my own fun means using imagination, or at least that's what I think of when I hear the phrase. I think of a lot of times when I was younger, using my imagination really all the time. Me and my brother could have potentially gotten bored. That's what we would do. We would use our imagination. And it got us into some really ridiculous scenarios in our heads, and it was just hilarious and goofy and made absolutely no sense, but it made the time go by a lot faster. So it was pretty great, actually.
Yeah, and it's kind of easy to use your childhood or just kids as like a good example of making your own fun, but I feel like it's kind of harder to talk about it as adults or as just people that have responsibilities or have things to take care of before anything else, and they can't just have fun all the time. So yeah, I know that you had your stories like with your brother, making up characters, having fun with all that. I mean, I had that with my brother too. We have a bigger age difference, so it didn't happen as much. So I was kind of more left on my own to kind of make my own stories or just ultimately make up my own experiences as a kid. But I think it helped me ultimately now, as I'm 21, when it comes to just having nothing to do, or when, as recently it occurred that I had a internet outage, and it was for several hours. They said that it was going to be like an 8-hour thing. And I was originally bothered, but I didn't let it get to me very quickly. I kind of immediately just thought like, okay, well, what's a fun thing to do then? And then I kind of just resorted to this game that they have for Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or whatever it may be whenever you're offline. I know for Google Chrome, it's the dinosaur hopping over the cactus. Yeah. So we did that version, or we did that game and a version of that. But then after that, I thought like, well, I kind of just want to do something now. Like I kind of want to be more active, I guess, instead of just playing a game. So I figured, why not show some childhood photos to Ruby, since I know I said that I was going to do that, or show some childhood videos as well. It kind of gave me time to do things that I always told myself I would do, but I kind of just let my days pass by, going on YouTube, working on school, working on my own projects, whatever it may be. And then ultimately I think like, oh yeah, I probably could have done that, but I didn't. So I think it was a good opportunity where I found myself to think like, what's something that's like pretty simple but still fun, and just something that I haven't done in a long time, pretty much. And I think I accomplished that. It was kind of fun. We also played I don't know what the name of the game is, but it's pretty much like a grid of dots.
Oh, yeah.
And you connect 2 dots, and whoever makes a box, that box counts as 1 point towards them. Whoever has the most points wins. That's another thing I haven't done in a long time, but these are all fun things that I like to do. And I think it showed that even though I have all kinds of entertainment through the internet, through playing video games, or TV shows, it's still nice to do the simple things in life that we can do when given the opportunity. And sometimes it can show a bond between two people that maybe that they forgot that they had, or maybe that they didn't even realize that they ever had. So I think it's really beneficial to kind of let your brain do the work when it comes to making your own fun and kind of practicing that imagination muscle.
I think it's funny how you mentioned how looking at old photos is fun, because I think it's fun too.
Right.
I feel like it's also such an adult fun.
Because there's just time now.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, it's not that I didn't like looking at old photos, but yeah, like now it's just like, oh my gosh, wow, what a trip. I don't know, something about it's just so entertaining. It's good adult entertainment. Well,
it's good entertainment when you are a adult.
yes,
An adult, my bad.
it is not. You know what I mean. So it sounds like you're saying that we should produce just as much or more than we consume. Like media, entertainment, whatever we can find fun. Let us make our own fun just as much.
Well, I think it's a balancing act. I mean, I know that not everyone is necessarily passionate about being some sort of artist, and that's going to be their career and all of that, so they end up producing a lot more than they consume, or maybe it's equal. I know that there's a lot of people out there that they live pretty ordinary lives, and so consumption of entertainment, that kind of takes up, it's very easy for consumption of entertainment to take up a lot more of their time than really producing something. But producing something doesn't only mean like producing art or producing music. It means just producing something, having something to work on, having something to do. It could just be a normal hobby. It could be mowing your lawn for all I care. It's just the act of living life. It's kind of important that we read about other people's lives, and we watch, with fantasy or even nonfiction stuff. It's really important that we consume all of this, but it's also just as important that we live our own lives and deal with our own experiences, because obviously reading about a death in the family is not going to hit you the same way as dealing with a death in the family, because there are certain things that encapsulate what that feels like for you. You can describe it all you want, but descriptions can only do so much. You can only give the person the idea or the understanding, the basic understanding of what it's like.
Yeah, same goes for making your own adventures. You don't want to read about your other people's adventures for the rest of your life.
Exactly, because then you'll realize like, oh, I have none.
Yeah. Well, I
didn't have much of one. Yeah, and it can be hard when you live your life only consuming. But I can say the same argument for producing. If you're only ever producing, you don't know what other people have experienced. You don't know what other stories are out there. You only know yourself. It kind of breeds an inherent ignorance that you didn't necessarily ask for, but you're neglecting the world that's out there. There's you and there's the world. And it's a balancing act of going both ways, whether you're procreating on your side or whether you're reacting or consuming of what the world has to offer. So, just doing too much of either, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best idea. Have it a balancing act. Yeah, and it's just important to read, watch, simulate, like with video games. Other characters' lives just as much as you live your own life.
Yeah, because it can definitely be depressing just living through someone else's life for the majority of your time, just watching these TV shows. I know people compare their lives way too much to TV. I feel like sometimes I do, to like characters on TV or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think this is how life should be, because this is what's so commonly shown on TV. Or like movies or something, so it's just always like, it's just a reality check to realize like, no, not everything has to be so dramatic or whatever, like you gotta go through the actual experience and not be so hypnotized by it.
No, and another thing that I feel like that's very easy for us to do is to kind of create edited versions of our experiences. I know, like, for me, I'm a big fan of Lorde. I really like her music, and like one of my favorite songs is called Supercut, and essentially the whole point of it is that, you know, in the middle of a breakup, because that's where the song was based off of, you know, you think about all the good times in the relationship, or you think about all the bad times. It's a super cut version of what the whole thing is like. So when we're consuming a whole bunch of stories, TV shows, movies, whatever it may be, and then we live our own lives, we kind of, I feel, we have like an inherent way of editing our own memories to make it kind of similar to like what we've seen and know. And, you know, in some ways that can be helpful, but again, living your own life, having it as your own story, that's really important. And I think because you consume so much, I feel you should be able to handle certain things in your life when they come. Like, I feel like if you read only tragedies, when a tragedy happens in your life, you better be prepared, or else that's going to be kind of disappointing. Like, what was the whole point?
I mean, I don't know about that, though.
In some sense, I feel like you should be prepared.
It's way more personal. I mean, I guess, yeah, you can try to react the same way I guess your favorite character reacted or whatever, but it's always way different. I mean, it's this personal connection now. Then
I understand that, and I get that in a personal connection, a lot more emotions can kind of come into play as to like what you decide to do afterwards. You know, how you cope with it, whatever that may be. But I feel like, you know, if you've heard enough times, like, hey, this person, I'll just use drug addiction as an example. You know, if you've seen so many stories about drug addiction, like how they know they should get off of it, but they don't want to because it, you know, it just makes them feel good. They just feel like they need it. Again, it feels like a necessity. And then you hear about all these stories. I would think that, you know, if you are taking drugs and you notice that you're kind of developing a dependency on it, there should be some red flags going on in your head to kind of stop it early on before it becomes too late. Because if you read so many stories, I'm assuming there's some sort of red flags that, you know, there's some sort of common traits in all of these stories that you can find to kind of see like, oh, I'm kind of feeling the same way as this person.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like a good sign. You know, and it's those things that I feel like we should take, even if it's like a comedy movie. You know, there's universal truths in every story of sudden. And I get it. It sounds ridiculous, you know, like what am I gonna get out of watching Step Brothers?
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like,
but there are morals in Step Brothers that you can take, no matter how ridiculous the story itself is. Watch it. Try to find the morals yourself. It's a funny movie. But yeah, ultimately, it's a balancing act. Consume just as much as you produce just as much as you consume. You know, play around with it.
so I know we got a little bit off topic on having fun, but to kind of go back, I think a great way of having fun with friends is, you know, watching movies, playing video games. That's always great. But I think a more enjoyable time that I've had with friends is when we're being productive and when we're really having this kind of same goal and creating something or whatever, because you do have that more personal bond experience where there's just more interaction, really. And I would say that's something that you should always strive to have more of with your friends. Try to balance it out, as we've been constantly saying.
Yeah.
And try not to make every day like a video games, movie kind of day. Maybe
Yeah.
pull out a board game. That's fun.
Well, I mean, there's a little bit more.
It's a little bit different. It's more talking points, I feel, with board
Yeah.
games. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think just the point of it is when you have a friendship or a relationship with someone and it's based off of like one thing, for example, like with TV shows or movies or even video games, like these are all things that you're reacting to. So you're not necessarily putting too much input yourself into like what is going on into the story most of the time. Once there are no more TV shows, movies, or video games to talk about between you two, it feels awkward, dead. It feels like you guys are strangers all of a sudden again. And I think what that reflects is that your relationship was built on being reactionary. which isn't necessarily bad. I think it's a good opener, but I think, obviously it's healthy to build more upon that. For example, in a lot of relationships, it's very easy for the first dates, the honeymoon stage, for people to go out to eat, people to go to watch a movie, people to just react to something, just enjoy something, enjoy a show, a concert.
They're very casual.
Yeah. Even in an amusement park, where like you're being more physical yourself, you're still reacting to rides, essentially.
Take that back. Concerts aren't casual, but go ahead.
Well, ultimately, it's just based off of like reacting to it. It's those times when you guys are just walking to a ride. That's where you can build better bonds, or when you're waiting in a line, or when you're at the concert but waiting for it to start if you get there early, or before the movie. It's those conversations that I feel like have the most bond building time.
Which isn't much.
It's not too much, but it's there. Now, when you are doing something more proactive, like I've noticed in relationships, is that, the longer you're in a relationship, the more likely you are to be proactive. For example, you're more likely to probably cook together, make something together, go make some photos together. I mean, I know for us, we're making the Make Show. This is a very proactive thing that we're doing. And, we're kind of doing it together. It's another aspect of us just bonding. And I think it helps out a lot.
Yeah, I'd say for me, definitely my favorite dates have been us being out, or I know some of my favorite dates are whenever we go have a picnic, we go to the park, we both typically cook the food together, or maybe I'll cook it or Caesar cooks it, we'll take turns, whatever. And we'll play Frisbee and just walk around the town or whatever. Or there's been times where we head out to take the train and walk around Winter Park area, and it's just been really nice.
Yeah, and those are times where we're both being proactive and reactive. Again, it's a balancing act. If we're just both making art all the time, I feel like we'd want to kill each other at some point. But if we're both just reacting all the time too, I feel like we're both probably gonna feel like strangers after that. So again, it's a balancing act ultimately. And I think just what that initial quote that I was saying in the beginning of the episode, which was, if you're bored all the time at everything, then it's because you are boring. I think what it's alluding to is more along the lines of this other phrase that I heard only recently, where it's a body in motion tends to stay in motion, and a body that is still tends to stay still. And pretty much just what it's saying is that, if you keep stacking on the days where you're not doing much at all, or where you're just not being productive, it can really get to you. It can again stack on you, feel like a weight on you, and all of a sudden, it can lead to things like depression, anxiety, these things that you probably don't want to go through all the time. But a body that is in motion tends to stay in motion. You keep being proactive. For example, exercising. If you keep exercising every day, your body wears down. You're gonna need to consume a lot more food to repair all the muscles. That's why rest is important. And so again, I think it all alludes to that balancing act of, to consume, to produce, make sure it's pretty even, because if not, you're gonna hurt yourself probably. And I think what that ultimately reflects in a really big picture scale is that in our lives, we need to have that balancing act of what we do versus what we critique versus what we react to. And I guess in a very simple way to say it, it's kind of just the circle of life.
So this concludes today's episode. I hope you guys go out and have some fun, be creative, be imaginative, maybe watch one movie. I'll let that slide. But yeah, remember that having fun, it's not just for the kids these days. Imagination, you can do it too. Spend some time doing it. I'll draw or something. But yeah, have a nice day, guys.